Giannis has been really good this season. But the thing is, the same can't be said about the Bucks. Giannis has been playing out of his mind. I mean, we're talking 31 points per game, 12 rebounds, and over 6 assists. This guy's shooting over 63% from the field. We're watching one of the most dominant players in the game today, yet the Bucks just can't seem to pull it together as a team. Right now, they're sitting at 1-6, with a rough 5-game losing streak. And it just doesn't make sense when Giannis is putting up these monster numbers. Last night was a prime example of that frustrating trend. Damian Lillard dropped 41 points, hit 10 threes, added 4 rebounds, and 9 assists. On top of that, Giannis added 34 points, 16 rebounds, and 9 assists. That's arguably his most dominant performance of the year so far, and they still couldn't get the win against the Cavs. A game like that, where both Lillard and Giannis are on fire, should be an automatic win for the Bucks. Instead, it turned into another heartbreaking loss. You could just feel it. The energy in that game, the way they were playing, it should have been theirs. But somehow, it slipped away again. And what makes this whole situation even crazier is that earlier in the season, Giannis went on a 4-game stretch where he was averaging 31.8 points, 11 rebounds, and 5.5 assists on an insane 64.6% shooting. Those are MVP numbers, but the Bucks, they went 0-4 facing. It's actually historical. He's the first player in NBA history to average 30, 10, and 5 on over 60% shooting during a 4-game losing streak. It's almost like we're watching two different realities. One where Giannis is playing like a basketball god, and another where the team just can't keep up. And check this out. He even had a game this season with 37 points, 11 rebounds, and a 77.8% shooting night. The only other players with more games of 35 points and 10 rebounds on 75% shooting, Wilt Chamberlain, Shaquille O'Neal, and Charles Barkley. That's it. It's like Giannis is constantly putting up numbers that rank him with some of the greatest big men of all time. But then, the Bucks keep coming up short. By the way, if you guys enjoy these deep dives, I'll be posting every day during the season. I genuinely appreciate if you could subscribe. Thanks. Anyways, Giannis, to start off the season, Giannis dropped 38 points, grabbed 11 rebounds, and dished out 5 assists in the first game. And still, they couldn't capitalize on that momentum. Let's put Giannis' career into perspective for a second. He has more games with 30 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists than almost anyone else in NBA history. Only legends like Oscar Robertson, Wilt, and Kareem have more. It's like he's out there rewriting history every night, while the Bucks are, well, stuck. And here's where it gets even wilder. NBA general managers were recently asked to rank the best players at each position. Here's what they decided. Luka Doncic as the top point guard, Anthony Edwards at shooting guard, Jason Tatum at small forward, and Nikola Jokic at center. But guess who they picked for power forward? Yep, Giannis. Giannis is recognized as the best power forward in the NBA today. It's no question that he's a force to be reckoned with. Yet, despite having one of the best in the league, if not the best at his position, the Bucks are struggling to put wins on the board. Historically, when Giannis scores 30 points or more, the Bucks have been almost unbeatable. From 2019 to 2023, their record when he scored 30 or more was an astounding 130 wins to 36 losses. And watching Giannis perform the way he has, it's hard not to feel frustrated for him. He's playing some of the best basketball of his life, yet the team's not delivering the wins he deserves. And it's not like he's not putting in the work. Night after night, he's giving everything. Scoring, rebounding, passing, defending. He's the kind of player who can turn a team around, and he has in the past. But right now, it feels like his efforts are almost going to waste. And as a fan of the game, you can feel the tension. The Bucks have this all-time talent, and they're barely treading water. Think about what last night represented. You had Damian Lillard playing out of his mind with those 41 points and 10 three-pointers. When was the last time we saw Dame that hot? He was on fire, and Giannis backed it up with 34 points, 16 rebounds, and 9 assists. That's the kind of 1-2 punch that's supposed to terrify opponent. It's the duo the Bucks wanted to build around, right? But they couldn't close out the game. Instead, it was another one that got away. How does that happen when two of the best players on the court are playing at their absolute peak? It's just hard to reconcile these numbers with the results. Giannis is putting up stats that put him in the company of the all-time greats. Wilt Chamberlain, Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley. These are names that built the game. But here we are, game after game, watching Giannis dominate and then walking away with an L. It's got to be beyond frustrating for him, and honestly, it's tough to watch as a fan. I want to see a player like Giannis rewarded for this level of play. He's putting in historic performances, and the Bucks just can't back him up with the wins. Maybe it's a team chemistry issue, or maybe they haven't quite figured out how to maximize having both Giannis and Dame. But there's no denying that something has to change if they want to turn the season around. They've got a powerhouse lineup with Giannis leading the charge, yet the results just aren't reflecting that. At the end of the day, basketball is a team sport, and as incredible as Giannis has been, it can't be a one-man show. The rest of the team has to step up, plain and simple. So where do the Bucks go from here? That's the big question. They've got a star player giving it his all, setting records, putting up numbers that rival some of the best ever, yet they're 1-6. If they can't start putting wins together, even performances like Giannis's 37 points on nearly 80% shooting won't be enough. It's time for the Bucks to look at what's missing and make some serious changes, because they can't keep wasting these performances. Watching Giannis dominate like this is something fans should be celebrating. He's breaking barriers, setting records, and giving everything on the court. But if they don't turn it around soon, all of that greatness might just slip through the crack. And the question now people are asking, is Giannis going to ask for a trade? Right now, the NBA world is holding its breath, watching Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks like hawks. Before this season even started, ESPN's Shams Charania and Brian Windhorst were already hinting that Giannis' future in Milwaukee was being monitored closely. And now, with the Bucks off to a slow start, the possibility of a trade request is feeling all too real. Multiple league executives are quoted saying they believe Giannis could actually ask out sometime soon. Think about that. Giannis, one of the most loyal stars in the league, might be considering his way out of Milwaukee. It sounds wild, right? But these aren't just rumors. Bill Ryder from CBS Sports talked to executives, and one of them said it plainly. Teams are circling and hopeful. You know what that means. Teams are lining up, just waiting for the chance to swoop in if Giannis is ready to make a move. One top executive from a team that could potentially pursue even said, "I wouldn't be surprised if it happened by the trade deadline." Now that's big. The thought of Giannis switching teams mid-season, it's not something anyone expected even a few years ago. He signed 3 extensions with the Bucks after all, most recently in 2023 after the Damian Lillard trade, but now it feels like all that loyalty might be tested. Here's the kicker. There are sources inside the Bucks front office saying it's all going to depend on Doc. Apparently, the plan is to wait 20 games, and then it'll be up to Doc Rivers, the new coach, to figure out what's next. This team might be putting all its faith in Doc to turn things around, and if he can't, well, we could be looking at the start of a Giannis bidding war across the league. What makes this so intriguing is how much Giannis has already done for Milwaukee. He's given them everything: 2 MVPs, an NBA title, countless historic performances, and he's done it all with this incredible drive and commitment to the Bucks, a small market team. But no player wants to stay in a place where they're spinning their wheels, especially someone who's this talented. Giannis is here to win, and he's proven he's willing to do whatever it takes. So, if he's even considering a trade, you have to think it's because he's feeling that frustration with the team's direction. Let's look at what happened last time Milwaukee went all in to keep him. Back in 2020, the Bucks made that huge move for Jrue Holiday. It was a gamble, but it paid off big time. They won a championship in 2021, and Giannis signed a massive extension. Then, they pulled off another blockbuster by trading for Damian Lillard in 2023. That was supposed to be the move to keep Giannis happy and give the Bucks that extra firepower. And still, here we are, 1-6. And the team just hasn't looked like the contender they were aiming to be. Imagine the feeling in that locker room. Giannis is putting up insane numbers, night after night. The guy is averaging over 30 points per game with more than 12 rebounds and 6 assists. He's doing everything he can, but the wins just aren't coming. How long can any superstar keep playing at that level without looking around and wondering if it's time for a change? And the league, they're watching too. Other teams are definitely circling, just waiting to see if Milwaukee slips up enough that Giannis might consider jumping ship. This isn't just a little rumor. It's becoming one of the most talked about potential moves in the NBA. Because let's be honest, any team that lands Giannis instantly becomes a contender. We're talking about a game-changing superstar who can take a franchise from good to great just by stepping on the court. Now, this isn't something that would happen overnight. Giannis is under contract with the Bucks until 2027, so Milwaukee technically has the control here, but we all know how it works. When a superstar decides they're done, it's usually only a matter of time before something has to give. And the Bucks are already feeling that pressure. They brought in Doc Rivers for a reason, and they're putting their trust in him to keep things from falling apart. But can Doc really fix this? That's the big question. It's clear the Bucks front office is on edge. One insider mentioned that it's a bit of a mess right now, which doesn't exactly inspire confidence. It's almost like they're scrambling, hoping that Doc can work some magic with this roster. But if the team doesn't improve over these next 20 games and the losses keep piling up, it's hard to see Giannis just sitting back and watching his prime years slip by. Giannis has always been about loyalty. He's been one of the few superstars who've shown commitment to a small market team. But loyalty can only go so far, especially when you're in your prime and watching other teams build around their stars with winning results. It's natural for a player like Giannis to think, what if there's a team out there ready to give him a better shot at more championships? So, let's talk about what this could mean for the league. If Giannis does request a trade, it would shake up the entire NBA. Teams would be throwing every asset they have on the table just to get him. Picks, young players, and stars, you name it. Giannis would be the hottest trade target in years, and whoever gets him, they'd instantly become one of the most dangerous teams in the league. Just picture it. Giannis in a different uniform, bringing that relentless energy and dominance to a new team. It'd be game-changing. And for Milwaukee, losing Giannis would be a devastating blow. He's not just a player for them, he's the heart and soul of that franchise. A trade would mean the Bucks going back to square one, facing a long rebuild without their cornerstone. That's not something any franchise wants to do, especially one that's tasted the success of a championship with Giannis leading the way. But let's not jump too far ahead. As things stand, there's still a chance for the Bucks to turn it around. They've got 20 games to prove to Giannis that they're serious about winning and that they have what it takes to compete. If Doc Rivers can get this team back on track, maybe, just maybe, all this trade talk goes away. Giannis has shown time and again that he's willing to stick with the Bucks if he believes in the team's direction. Still, the pressure's on, and you can bet that as each game passes, every executive in the league is watching, waiting, and hoping for their chance. Because if Giannis decides he's done, it's going to be a frenzy like we've never seen before. If Giannis does ask for a trade, the major question is, where would it be? I want to look at some of the possibilities and what it would mean for the franchise. Let's start with some of the two teams he's been linked to so far. First, the Miami Heat. All right, let's get into this. Imagine for a second, Giannis in a Heat uniform. I mean, it's a thrilling thought for Miami fans, but let's be real here. It's still a long shot, a bit of a pipe dream even. Giannis is locked into his Bucks contract for 3 more years, and without that leverage, forcing a trade to a team of his choice, like Miami, would be a huge challenge. Damian Lillard already found out this season that when you don't have the flexibility to dictate where you'll land, things get pretty tough. Now, let's say Giannis did actually request a trade, and Milwaukee somehow decided to grant it. The Heat would still face major obstacles. Miami's trade assets, not exactly top tier right now. They've got just 1, maybe 2 first-round picks they could offer, and while they have some young talent in Tyler Herro, Jaime Jaquez Jr., and Nikola Jovic, none of these guys are the kind of blue-chip, blockbuster trade pieces that would make the Bucks bite. We're talking about Giannis here, a 2-time MVP and one of the best players in the game. To get someone like that, you need to bring something big to the table. And Miami's current assets just don't scream MVP caliber return. But here's where things get really interesting. If the Bucks were serious about considering a deal, they'd probably start by asking for Bam Adebayo. That's a tough ask, right? Bam is 3 years younger than Giannis, and he's established himself as an elite defender, a 3-time All-Star, and a rock for Miami's franchise. He's the kind of player other stars want to play alongside. And honestly, Adebayo might be the best single piece the Bucks could get from any potential Giannis deal. He's young, he's talented, and he's a big-time competitor. With a core of Bam, Lillard, Brook Lopez, and Chris Middleton, the Bucks could stay competitive in the East. But for the Heat, trading Bam, even if it's for Giannis, is more than just a basketball decision. There's so much wrapped up in what he means to the franchise and the city. Miami's been hyping him up as the face of their future. Wade himself has hinted that Bam could be the next player to get a statue outside of the arena someday. So it's not just about losing a player, it's about losing someone they've built up as a franchise cornerstone, a guy who's beloved by Miami fans. But here's the thing, if Pat Riley believes that adding Giannis, even at the cost of Bam and maybe some other assets, would make Miami a championship favorite, you've got to think he's willing to pull the trigger. Now, how would the Heat look if they pulled off this move? That's the real question. A core of Giannis and Jimmy Butler sounds intimidating on paper, right? But it's complicated. There would still be some big challenges. especially with spacing. Butler is more reliable health-wise than Middleton, but he's also 2 years older. And while Tyler Herro is evolving as a shooter, he's not exactly the deep threat that someone like Lillard brings. Spacing has been a problem for the Heat, and adding Giannis wouldn't fix that by itself. Sure, Giannis would bring that unmatched athleticism and presence around the rim, but Miami would still have to work out the shooting and spacing issues to get the most out of his skill set. Of course, there's another layer here: coaching. Spo is one of the best in the business, and his discipline, no-nonsense approach could be exactly what Giannis needs to reach his absolute peak. Milwaukee has been successful with Giannis, no doubt, but Miami's structure and culture could offer him a fresh start, a new way of pushing himself further. Maybe, just maybe, that's the key to unlocking another level of greatness for Giannis. But let's not forget, this is a high-stakes gamble. Jimmy Butler has the option to leave Miami next summer, so if he opts out and heads into free agency, Miami would be left with just Giannis, who'd be hitting 30 by then, and not a lot of young talent around him. Trading away Bam and other assets would empty the Heat's cupboard, leaving them with very little flexibility to build a supporting cast. It's one thing to dream about a Giannis-led Heat team, but the reality could be a roster with fewer pieces around him than he has in Milwaukee right now. The idea of Miami trading Butler for Giannis, by the way, that's not really an option here. For the Bucks, a trade like that wouldn't make sense. They'd lose their long-term future and gain an aging star. So, it's pretty much off the table. In the end, it's a balancing act. Giannis is clearly the better player compared to Bam, and he'd elevate the Heat in so many ways. But would it be enough to justify the risk? Miami would need to be absolutely certain that they could keep both Butler and Giannis long-term and still build a strong team around them. And that's where things get tricky, making it all work without giving up so much that you're left with a bare-bones roster. After them, though, let's look at the second team he's been linked to, the Brooklyn Nets. All right, picture this: Giannis, the Greek freak, playing for the Brooklyn Nets. Yes, that's right. Now, the idea has been floating around for years. The Nets, it's rumored, have always been interested in Giannis. Like, he's been the dream target on their radar for so long. Just imagine the buzz around Brooklyn. It's no secret the franchise has wanted a top-tier star ever since the last big experiment with Durant, Irving, and Harden. But wait, does Giannis actually fit into the Nets' new strategy? That's where things get interesting. The franchise, led by Joe Tsai and Sean Marks, is all about building a contender organically now. They're not trying to go all in on superstars the way they did before. Instead, they're collecting picks, focusing on their young talent, and taking a long-haul approach. They want that sustainable growth. But here's the thing. When it comes to a player like Giannis, sometimes all those plans can go out the window. Because let's be honest, adding someone of his caliber changes everything. Let's break it down. Giannis, at 6'11" with his unique skill set, could bring something special to the Nets. We're talking about one of the league's most dominant players here, a back-to-back MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and Finals MVP who can practically do it all. And think about how he'd look in a lineup with Brooklyn's rising stars. A lot of fans are already skeptical, though, maybe a bit scarred by how things went with KD, Kyrie, and Harden. They don't want a repeat of that era, and understandably so, but that's not stopping the speculation. Giannis has been mentioned prominently as a potential fit for the Nets, especially by big-name reporters and analysts like Zach Lowe and Ramona Shelburne, who've highlighted Brooklyn as one of the teams keeping an eye on his situation, and they're not the only ones watching. Teams like the Pelicans, Raptors, and Warriors have also been named as possible suitors, but Brooklyn stands out because of their assets. They've got young talent and some valuable picks that could make a trade package intriguing if the Bucks ever decided to move in a different direction. So, let's talk about what that trade might look like. Right now, the Nets have a roster that's flexible. They've got 1,000 picks from the Bridges trade and plenty of potential in players like Cam Thomas and Nick Claxton. But would they really be willing to shake up their entire core for Giannis? It would be a massive shift from their current rebuilding approach. And there's no guarantee he would even want Brooklyn as his destination. But if he did, the Nets would have to be ready to make some serious sacrifices to get him. If the Bucks were to entertain an offer, they'd likely want top-notch assets in return. They wouldn't just let a player of Giannis's caliber go for a couple of picks or young prospects. And for the Nets, that could mean parting with some of their most promising pieces. But for a franchise-changing player like Giannis, the Nets might just be willing to pay it. Now, imagine Giannis in a Nets jersey. Think about the energy he'd bring to Brooklyn. Giannis thrives on intensity, and Brooklyn fans would love his work ethic and dedication. He'd be playing in a major market with a fan base that's hungry for success. And Giannis, in turn, could bring the kind of excitement that makes the Barclays Center electric every night. The pairing of Giannis and Brooklyn would add some real spice to the Eastern Conference. And here's something interesting. Brooklyn might actually be an ideal fit for Giannis stylistically. The Nets have been focused on defense, ball movement, and high-energy play. Giannis's game is all about attacking the rim, and his defensive skills would fit perfectly with what the Nets are trying to build. You pair his talent with Brooklyn's up-and-coming roster, and suddenly, they're not just a playoff team, they're a potential powerhouse. However, let's not forget the risks involved. Adding Giannis could mean sacrificing some of the flexibility that Brooklyn currently has. If they go all in and build around him, they could end up in a similar position to where they were a few years ago with their Big Three experiment. They'd be relying on one superstar, and if things didn't work out, it could set them back in their long-term rebuilding plans. And there's also the timing. Giannis is under contract with the Bucks for 3 more years, and unless he pushes for an early trade, the Nets might have to wait. The NBA trade season doesn't even get into full swing until mid-December, so there's still a long way to go before any serious talks could happen. But if the Bucks continue to struggle, it wouldn't be a surprise if teams like the Nets started circling. So, what's the takeaway here? Giannis to the Nets would be a game changer. It would be a major shift for Brooklyn and a huge step toward becoming title contenders again, but the path to get there would be challenging. The Nets would have to balance their desire to build sustainably with the temptation of adding a true superstar. For now, it's all speculation, but one thing's for sure. If Giannis ever became available, Brooklyn wouldn't hesitate to consider it. To me, though, the clear obvious team is the Oklahoma City Thunder. If the Oklahoma City Thunder somehow managed to land Giannis, we'd be talking about an instant dynasty in the making. They're already a strong contender this season, but adding Giannis would elevate them to another level entirely. It's hard to even imagine a former Defensive Player of the Year joining what's already the league's best defense. And his offense, next to Chet Holmgren's shooting range, almost unstoppable. First, let's break down why this deal could actually happen. The Thunder have a mix of assets that make this more than just a fantasy. They've got 4 unprotected first-round picks, plus 5 protected ones. Not to mention a swap option with the Clippers in the upcoming draft. If LA's roster falters, that swap could be incredibly valuable. These assets give OKC the type of bargaining power most teams could only dream of when targeting a superstar like Giannis. And while putting together the necessary salaries for a trade would be a little tricky, it's not impossible. Here's the most straightforward path for OKC to get Giannis. Include Jalen Williams, Lou Dort, and Isaiah Hartenstein in the trade. Sure, it's a steep price, and they'd have to wait until December 15th to finalize it, but OKC has the depth to make it work. If they parted with Hartenstein, players like Alex Caruso, Aaron Wiggins, and Cason Wallace are more than capable of stepping up, and Giannis could even spend some time at center to fill any gaps. For the Bucks, getting Jalen Williams in return would be a huge win. He's a rising star with two-way skills and all-star potential. If Milwaukee ever had to make this trade, it'd be hard to imagine a better return package than this. Now picture this, Giannis lining up with Chet Holmgren. The impact on both ends of the floor would be insane. Holmgren's already putting up all-star level numbers and has the skill set to stretch the floor, opening up even more offensive options for Giannis. Defensively, the two of them could dominate the paint, and Holmgren's shooting would create perfect spacing for Giannis to attack inside. And we can't overlook the sheer firepower of pairing Giannis with Gilgeous-Alexander. SGA's playmaking, alongside Giannis's physicality and versatility, would be terrifying for any defense in the league. If this duo got rolling, defenses would have to make impossible choices. Sag off Giannis, and he'd tear them up inside, or double him, and SGA would pick them apart from mid-range or beyond. It's a nightmare scenario for any opponent. Now, trading Hartenstein might not sting too much, since he's been dealing with injuries this season and hasn't even hit the court yet. But letting go of Dort and Jalen Williams, that's where it gets complicated. Jalen Williams is quickly gaining a reputation as one of the best young two-way players in the league. He's got length, defensive intensity, and untapped offensive potential. A perfect fit for a team building around defense and versatility. And Lou Dort, he's a defensive monster and an outside shooting threat. Exactly the type of player who thrives in big games. The idea of losing them would make any Thunder fan pause. But here's the question that Thunder fans would have to grapple with. Is Giannis worth giving up a core that's taken years to build? Jalen and Dort have been instrumental in OKC's rise, and there's a ton of untapped potential in their future draft picks. Those picks aren't just numbers. They're future prospects who could turn into game changers down the line. Trading away such valuable building blocks would mean putting all their chips on a win-now strategy, Let's not forget Giannis is a generational talent. He's a proven champion who's done almost everything in the NBA. The leadership and experience he'd bring could immediately change OKC's trajectory, turning them into an instant title favorite. Plus, the combination of Giannis, SGA, and Holmgren would be one of the most versatile athletic trios in the league, capable of dominating on both ends. Still, there's a bigger picture to consider here. OKC's roster is young and built for sustainable success. They have a strategy centered around steady growth and development, and that's led them to this point. Going all in for Giannis would mean speeding up that process but risking the future. It'd be a high-risk, high-reward move, but if it pays off, the Thunder could be celebrating multiple championships for years to come. In the end, this is the type of trade that would shake up the league. The kind that would make Thunder fans dream big, but also hold their breath. The opportunity to add a player like Giannis doesn't come around often, and if OKC decides to pull the trigger, it could redefine the franchise's future. For now, though, it's a question of how much the Thunder are willing to bet on Giannis, and just how far they're ready to go to chase a dynasty. After them, though, there's one more team I want to look at. That's Golden State. Imagine the pure chaos of Giannis teaming up with Steph Curry on the Golden State Warriors. I mean, just think about it. The excitement of two of the biggest stars in the NBA joining forces would be a sight to behold. This pairing would have fans on the edge of their seats, ready to witness some next-level basketball. Now, we never got to see Steph Curry and LeBron James share the same jersey, but let me tell you, Giannis and Steph could be just as electrifying. This combo would melt minds and break defenses like never before. Giannis brings a relentless drive to the basket, and we all know how deadly Curry is from beyond the arc. Imagine the havoc they could wreak on opposing defenses. It's almost too exciting to handle. The Warriors have been playing the long game, patiently stacking up draft picks and nurturing some serious young talent. Players like Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, Brandon Podziemski, and Trace Jackson-Davis could be super appealing to a Bucks team that might be eyeing a rebuild. They have the pieces to make a significant trade happen. But here's the kicker. Can Golden State outbid teams like Oklahoma City, Houston, or New Orleans? That's a tough one. They might not have the upper hand, but Giannis's own preferences could play a huge role in all this. An 8-time All-Star is not going to force a trade without having some say in where he lands. He's not just a player, he's a superstar. While the Bucks hold the cards, true superstars often have a way of influencing their fates behind the scenes. If Giannis decides he wants to wear that Warriors jersey, you better believe the Bucks will have to consider their options. And let's not forget the market. Golden State is a premium market with a history of winning. If Giannis decides to join the Warriors, he'd be stepping into a culture of excellence. Plus, with Steve Kerr as the coach, Giannis would be in an offense that perfectly suits his skills. He'd add an element we've never seen before. The pressure he puts on defenses when attacking the rim would be insane. Just picture him crashing the paint while Curry is dancing around the three-point line. Opponents wouldn't know what hit them. The two-man actions between Giannis and Steph would absolutely shatter defenses. They'd create a synergy that Milwaukee fans wished for when Giannis was paired with Damian Lillard. But let's be real. While Lillard is an all-time shooter, he just can't compare to the magic Curry brings to the table. Steph's ability to move off the ball and shoot from anywhere is just different. When he plays alongside another offensive powerhouse like Giannis, the results could be out of this world. Now let's talk about the Warriors' current season. They're starting hot. Steve Kerr has a roster full of depth and scoring options surrounding Steph. It's a game changer. They might not be built for a championship run just yet, but add Giannis to the mix, and it's a whole different ballgame. They'd instantly become one of the top contenders in the West. This dynamic duo could redefine the game. Giannis would be thriving in Golden State's system, and the Warriors would have a legitimate shot at not just winning games, but dominating the league. With Giannis crashing the boards and finishing at the rim, paired with Curry's ability to stretch the floor and create shots, they'd be virtually unstoppable. It would make for some jaw-dropping highlights and memorable moments that fans would be talking about for years. Picture this. Late in a tight game, the Warriors are down by 2 with just seconds left on the clock. Curry, known for his clutch shooting, gets the ball and draws defenders like a magnet. Giannis, with his incredible speed, crashes the lane and gets ready for a potential lob. Curry, feeling the pressure, dishes the ball to Giannis, who soars above the rim and slams it down. The crowd goes wild. It's a highlight reel play that fans will replay over and over again. Defensively, Giannis would elevate the Warriors' game to a whole new level. Known for being a former Defensive Player of the Year, he'd bring elite rim protection and versatility. He could switch onto guards, disrupt passing lanes, and shut down opposing offenses. The Warriors have always prided themselves on their defense, but with Giannis, they'd become a nightmare for teams trying to score. Now, it's essential to recognize the sacrifices that might need to be made to bring Giannis to Golden State. Those young prospects like Kuminga and Moody could be on the chopping block. And that's a tough pill to swallow for any fan. But if there's one thing we know about the NBA, it's that teams often need to part with potential for proven superstars. Giannis is a generational talent. He can do it all. He's got championship experience and knows what it takes to win. The prospect of him wearing a Warriors jersey would certainly create a sense of urgency for the team to make a move. Can they pull the trigger? That's $1 million question. While losing promising players might sting, the potential rewards are simply too enticing to ignore. The Warriors could quickly transition from a solid team to a legitimate dynasty. With Giannis alongside Curry, they'd have the chance to compete for multiple championships, not just one. And let's not forget the excitement it would generate for fans. The thought of Giannis joining forces with Steph would create an electrifying buzz around the league. Ticket sales would skyrocket. Fans would flock to see this unstoppable duo in action. Giannis's addition would not only impact the Warriors, but the entire NBA landscape. Rival teams would be scrambling to keep up. This isn't just about the Warriors winning. It's about the ripple effects across the league. Teams would need to reconsider their strategies and rosters to compete with a newly formed juggernaut. Moreover, the social media hype around Giannis and Curry playing together would be off the charts. Fans would be posting clips, memes, and reactions to their amazing plays. The engagement would create a cultural phenomenon that stretches beyond basketball. In terms of legacy, this could elevate both Giannis and Steph to another level. Giannis, already a two-time MVP, could solidify his status as one of the all-time greats. Winning multiple championships with the Warriors could put him in the conversation with the legends of the game. And for Steph, teaming up with another superstar would help him further cement his legacy as one of the best players in NBA history. The Warriors organization has always been about maximizing their potential. If they make a move for Giannis, it would signal their intent to not just compete, but dominate. They would be sending a message to the rest of the league. They're back in the championship conversation, and they mean business. As fans, it's thrilling to imagine the possibilities. The energy in the arena would be electric every game night. The Warriors would become must-watch TV, with each game bringing the chance to witness something extraordinary. In conclusion, the prospect of Giannis joining the Golden State Warriors is a tantalizing one. The combination of Giannis and Steph would create a basketball experience unlike any other. They turn the league upside down and redefine what it means to be a contender. The excitement, the plays, the championships. It's all within reach. It's a dream scenario that could reshape the future of the NBA. Who wouldn't want to see that? Overall, though, the Milwaukee Bucks have some serious work to do this season. I really hope they can turn things around because Giannis deserves to compete at the highest level. He's such an incredible talent, and it would be a shame to waste his prime years on a struggling team. They've got the pieces, but it feels like something's just not clicking right now. If they can get their chemistry together and find their rhythm, I believe they can still make a run for the playoffs. But if they don't start seeing some wins soon, don't be surprised if Giannis requests a trade. He's an all-time great, and he won't want to be stuck in a situation where the team isn't making progress. That's just the reality of the NBA. Stars want to win. So while I'm rooting for the Bucks to get it together, the pressure is on. Fans are anxious. And if they don't step up, it could lead to some major changes in Milwaukee. Here's hoping they prove me wrong and keep the Greek Freak in town for years to come. If you guys enjoyed this, I'll be posting every day during this season. I genuinely appreciate if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.